زكاتك تدفع عنك البلاء وتحفظ مالك أن أقام.
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to part 7 of the short series on contemporary laws related to zakat. We continue with our discussion of calculating zakat on zakatable assets, and today we will be looking at how to calculate zakat on your share investments. Now, shares are invested in primarily for two reasons. On the one hand, people invest in shares as a share trader. So in this case, the shares would be like the inventory or trading stock for the share trader. And just like we pay zakat on the market value of trading stock, we would pay zakat on the market value of the shares on the zakat date. So a share trader would use the market value of the shares on their zakat valuation date, and they would pay zakat on the market value. Now, of course, this is very easy to obtain nowadays with the online portals. You can get the value of the share on any given date, and you can get the value of your portfolio, the market value at any given date. However, many people actually invest in shares as long-term investments for capital appreciation. So they don't buy and sell shares as share traders. Now, in that instance, the correct method of calculating zakat would be to look at the underlying zakatable assets of the company that one has invested in. So, for example, if one has invested in Mr. Price on the South African Stock Exchange and the JSE, one would look into the financial statements of Mr. Price to assess the zakatable assets, the cash on hand, any gold and silver on hand, any foreign exchange on hand, any inventory, and any debtors. And zakat would then be payable on the net zakatable underlying assets. So if a person is able to do that, then that is the most accurate way to calculate zakat. You would look at the value of these on one's zakat date or closest proxy to one's zakat date and use the underlying assets and one's proportionate ownership of those underlying assets. So for example, if you own 1% of the company and the company has 100 rands of zakatable assets, your value to be included would be 1% of that, which would be 1 rand, and that would be included as part of your zakat base, and you would then pay 2.5% of that 1 rand related to that investment. However, many people are unable to access that information and to do that calculation on a regular basis. So the ulama have also allowed market value of the shares on your zakat valuation date to be used as a proxy, even if you are a long-term capital investor. The similar principle would be applied to unlisted investments. So investments that are not listed on public stock exchanges, private investments that you've made, you would have to look at that particular company, assess the zakatable assets of that company, and then you would be liable to pay your proportionate share of zakat on those unlisted investments. Of course, if it is a majority Muslim-owned company, then the shareholders can agree that the zakat will then be discharged by the company on behalf of all of the shareholders. Of course, that would be something that you would need to assess. Generally, in most instances, and particularly in non-Muslim countries, that is not the case. So you would need to calculate your share of underlying zakatable assets. The same would apply to collective investment schemes or unit trusts as we know them in South Africa. Here again, it's a basket of shares that one has invested in. If the fund manager is able to look at the underlying assets of each investment, and sometimes there can be 100 or 200 investments in there, that would be the most accurate way of obtaining the zakat value. But if that's not possible, then the market value of the collective investment scheme or the unit trust on the zakat valuation date, or as close to the zakat valuation date as possible, should be used for the valuation for zakat purposes. Now, remember, in all these instances, there's certain estimates that are being made, and sometimes you are allowing a few days leeway because of the obtaining of information and valuation. So in such an instance, it's always better, ihtiyatan, out of caution, to add a little bit extra onto your zakat amount to cover for any shortfall that may occur as a result of this estimation. This brings us to the end of this session where we discussed zakat on investments. Inshallah, we will continue in the future, in the next part, with additional zakatable assets. Subhanallahi wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.
لذلك قال الرسول الكريم فلذ بالنداء تفز بالمرام.